The battlefield was silent, except for the smoke and the smell of fire. Broken machines lay scattered across the ground, and bodies of soldiers were hidden under the ashes. It was the last night of the war, but no one knew it yet. The sky glowed red from burning cities, and the wind carried the sound of distant gunfire. Among the ruins walked a young human soldier named Daniel. He was tired, his uniform torn, his rifle empty. He had lost his unit hours ago, and now he moved like a ghost among the dead. He wanted to survive, but he also wanted to believe there was still something worth saving. Then he heard it, a faint cry, soft and trembling. It did not sound like any soldier's voice. It was weaker, almost like a child. Daniel froze. His heart beat faster. The war had taught him one thing. Sometimes cries were traps. But still, something in that sound felt real, felt human, even though it was not. Slowly, he followed the voice. Through the smoke, past broken walls, he reached a fallen bunker. There, half buried under concrete, was a girl. Her skin was not like his. It was blue, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her hair was silver, tangled with dust and blood. Her eyes, wide and bright, looked at him with fear. Daniel stared, shocked. He had heard of them before, the outsiders, the ones from the stars. The war had begun because of them, or at least that was what the general said. But here she was, not an enemy soldier, not a monster, just a girl. Barely alive, trapped and shaking. She tried to speak, her lips dry and weak. "Please help," she whispered. The sound of her voice was soft, trembling, almost broken. Daniel hesitated. If his commander were here, the order would be simple: leave her or kill her. But Daniel was alone, and in that moment he saw not an alien, not an enemy, but a child who needed help. He dropped his rifle and rushed forward. He pushed away the concrete with his bare hands, his muscles screaming in pain. Piece by piece, he cleared the rubble. She cried out when the weight shifted, but she did not let go of his arm. Her fingers were cold, too cold, as if ice lived under her skin. Finally, he pulled her free. She collapsed in his arms, too weak to stand. He could feel her heartbeat, slow, faint but still alive. Her blood stained his hands, glowing faintly like liquid light. He stared at it, amazed, afraid, yet unable to look away. Why save me?" she asked, her voice weak. Daniel did not answer. He just looked at her and said, "Because I can." He carried her through the ruins, searching for shelter. Every step was heavy, his body exhausted, but he refused to stop. The night was dangerous. Patrols and machines still hunted across the battlefield. If they saw him carrying her, they would kill them both. Still, he moved like a shadow, silent, careful, desperate. He found an old storage room under a broken house. Inside, he placed her gently on the ground. He tore a part of his uniform and pressed it against her wound. Her glowing blood soaked the cloth, but slowly the bleeding slowed. She looked at him with wide eyes, confused. "Human, why?" she whispered again. Daniel shook his head. "Don't speak, just stay alive," he told her. Her eyelids grew heavy, her body trembling from pain and cold. Before she lost consciousness, she whispered something. Her words were strange, like a promise. "One day, human, we meet again." Then her eyes closed, and silence filled the room. Daniel sat beside her, listening to her weak breathing. He did not know if she would live. He did not know if saving her would cost him his life. But for the first time in years of war, he felt something he thought he had lost: hope. Outside, the war raged on. But inside that small broken room, a secret bond was born. A human and a blue-skinned girl, tied together by a single act of mercy. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. But the night they met would change everything, forever. 10 years passed like a shadow. The war ended, but its scars remained on the land and on the people. Cities were rebuilt, streets filled with life again, but the silence of the dead still lingered. Daniel was no longer a soldier. He had left the army, taken a small home in the countryside, and tried to live as an ordinary man. Each morning he worked in the fields, his hands rough, his back tired. Each evening, He sat alone on the porch, watching the stars. He looked like a farmer, but inside, he was still a soldier carrying memories that refused to fade. Among all the memories, one was the sharpest. The night of the rescue. The blue-skinned girl. Her silver hair shining even in the dust. Her faint whisper promising they would meet again. Daniel tried to forget, but her face always returned in his dreams. Sometimes she appeared wounded, begging for help. Other nights, she stood tall and glowing, looking at him with eyes that knew too much. He always woke up sweating, unable to shake the feeling that her words had been more than just a fading breath. He kept a small notebook hidden under his bed. Inside it, he drew the things he remembered: her face, the glow of her blood, the strange symbols he thought he had heard in her whisper. He never showed it to anyone. If people saw it, they would laugh, or worse, they would remember the war and hate him for saving her. So the notebook became his only secret, his only connection to the past. The world around him moved forward. Humans became stronger, their cities taller, their machines faster. But Daniel felt stuck, like he was living in borrowed time. He had no family, no friends close enough to call his own. Sometimes neighbors greeted him. Sometimes children asked him to tell stories of the war. He always refused, not because he could not remember, but because he remembered too much. At night, he would sit outside with a lamp, looking at the sky. He would trace constellations with his finger, wondering where she came from. He did not know her name, her people, or her world. All he knew was her eyes, her voice, and a promise. One day we meet again. Daniel often told himself it was foolish. She was probably dead, or gone forever. But deep inside, he felt something waiting, like the universe itself had not forgotten what happened that night. One evening, as he walked through the small town market, he overheard voices. Travelers were speaking of strange lights in the sky, ships moving like shadows above the clouds. The people laughed, calling them stories, lies, or tricks of the weather. But Daniel froze when he heard it. He had seen those lights before, long ago, on the night he found her. He returned home, restless. That night, he opened the notebook and stared at her face. The drawing looked alive in the lamplight, as if her silver hair shimmered again. He touched the page and whispered, "Are you still out there?" The wind outside howled, shaking the windows. He thought it was just a storm, but something about the sound felt different. Like the sky itself was moving, watching, waiting. Daniel lay in bed, but could not sleep. His heart felt heavy, as if the years of silence were about to break. The dream came again, sharper this time. She stood in front of him, glowing brighter than ever, her eyes filled with power. And for the first time, she did not whisper. She commanded, "Bow, human." Daniel woke up gasping, his chest pounding. He sat in the dark, his hands trembling. Was it only a dream, or was it a message? He did not know, but deep inside he felt the truth. The forgotten years were ending. Something was coming, and he would not be ready for it. The night began with silence. The stars above the small town glittered like tiny lamps, calm and distant. But then, without warning, the sky tore open. A flash of white light spread across the heavens, followed by a low hum that shook the earth. Dogs barked, windows rattled, and people rushed into the streets, their faces pale with fear. Daniel stood on his porch, staring upward. At first he thought it was thunder, a storm breaking across the horizon. But the sound grew louder, deeper, like 1,000 drums beating in the air. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and then he saw it. A shadow stretching across the stars, massive and endless. A ship larger than any mountain, sliding silently over the sky. Children screamed, women prayed, and men pointed with trembling hands. The ship was not alone. Behind it, dozens more descended from the clouds, glowing with strange symbols. Their lights cut across the darkness like blades of fire. The air smelled sharp, electric, as if lightning had filled the earth. The people of the town scattered. Some ran to the churches, some to the fields, some simply fell to their knees. Soldiers from a nearby base arrived, shouting orders, setting up guns that looked like toys beneath the giant ships. Daniel did not move. He could not. The sight above him froze his body, but his heart told him something more. This was not just an invasion. This was the return. The largest ship hovered directly above the town square. Its metal surface shimmered, alive with shifting patterns. With a hiss, a beam of light stretched from the ship to the ground. It carved a circle of fire into the stone, and within that circle, a figure appeared. The crowd gasped as the figure stepped forward. Tall, strong, wrapped in silver armor that glowed like starlight. Her skin was blue, smooth and flawless, her hair silver as the moon, flowing behind her. Her eyes glowed with power, sharp and commanding. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. It was her. The girl he had once carried through the ruins was gone. In her place stood a queen, radiant and terrible. Every step she took sent a ripple of energy across the ground. The air bent around her, heavy, as if the earth itself bowed. The soldiers raised their weapons. She lifted her hand, and with a single gesture, the guns melted into smoke. The crowd cried out, their courage shattered. Voices whispered one word over and over, "Goddess, goddess, goddess." But her voice was no prayer, it was thunder. "Bow, human," she commanded. The sound shook the stones, rattled the air, and pressed down on every chest. The people fell to their knees, trembling, unable to resist. Mothers clutched their children, men lowered their heads, even the soldiers collapsed. All except one. Daniel stood frozen, his eyes locked on hers. His knees trembled, but he refused to fall. In that moment, the world around him disappeared. The ships, the people, the smoke, none of it mattered. It was only her and the memory of a night 10 years ago. The night he had saved her. She saw him. Her glowing eyes paused, her lips curved slightly, almost a smile, almost a threat. With a flick of her hand, her guards, tall, armored beings with blades of light, stepped forward. They pushed through the crowd and dragged Daniel into the circle of fire. The people whispered his name in fear. Some thought he would be executed as an example. Others thought he must be special to stand before her. Daniel himself did not know. All he felt was the weight of her gaze. The same eyes he had seen filled with fear 10 years ago, now filled with power. She stood before him, closer now, her presence overwhelming. "Do you remember me, human?" she asked, her voice sharp and cold. Daniel's heart pounded, but he managed to whisper, "Yes." Her smile deepened, though her eyes stayed hard. "Good," she said, "because I remember you." The crowd gasped, the soldiers stared, the world seemed to stop. Daniel's chest tightened, his mind spun. She remembered. After 10 years, through war, through stars, through power, she remembered the night he carried her from the ruins. But was it a blessing or a curse? He did not know. And as the beam of light carried them both into the ship above, he realized this was only the beginning. The light swallowed Daniel as the beam lifted him from the earth. The crowd below grew smaller, their faces pale, their voices lost in the roar of the ship. The air thinned, his stomach churned, then all at once the light vanished. He stood inside a vast chamber, silent and cold. The floor was black glass, shining like water. Strange symbols pulsed across the walls, glowing with pale light. Guards stood around him, tall and silent, their armor sharp, their eyes hidden behind dark masks. Daniel felt small, like an insect inside a giant machine. Then she entered, the blue-skinned queen, her steps slow and deliberate. The guards lowered their heads as she passed, but Daniel did not. He could not. Every movement of hers pulled him back to the night 10 years ago. The weak girl he had carried in his arms, bleeding and shivering. Now she walked like the universe itself obeyed her. She stopped only a few feet away. Her eyes locked on his, glowing bright. Daniel's heart pounded, his legs heavy, but he did not kneel. He refused. The room grew tense. The guards shifted uneasily. One raised his blade, as if to strike. But with a flick of her hand, she stopped him. The guard froze, lowering the weapon. Silence filled the chamber, broken only by her voice. You do not bow, she said, her words slow, sharp. Her voice echoed against the walls. Daniel swallowed hard. I remember you, he said quietly. For the first time, her expression changed. Her lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. Yes, she answered. You do. The guards looked at each other, confused. To them, he was only a human, fragile and unworthy. But she knew. She remembered the night in the ruins, the blood, the fear, the promise whispered before darkness took her. Daniel took a step forward, though his hands trembled. You were dying, he said. You begged for help. Her eyes narrowed. Her smile faded. I was weak, she admitted, her voice low. Now I am not. The weight of her words pressed on him. Daniel felt the truth. Every breath of hers carried power. Every glance reminded him she was no longer the girl he saved. She was something greater, something terrible. Yet, for a moment, he saw a flicker in her eyes. Not power, not command, but memory, a shadow of the frightened child hiding in the ruins. It was gone in an instant, replaced with cold fire. You saved me, she said, but mercy is not loyalty. Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to speak, to remind her of the bond between them. But the words caught in his throat. What if she no longer cared? What if saving her had been a mistake that would now doom them all? She circled him slowly, her armor whispering against the glass floor. The guards kept silent, their eyes lowered. Tell me, human, she said, her voice softer now, almost curious. Why did you do it? Why risk your life for a stranger? For an enemy? Daniel breathed heavily. He saw again the smoke, the rubble, the girl's hand gripping his sleeve. He spoke the truth, simple and bare. Because you were just a girl, because you were afraid, and because I could not walk away. She stopped walking, her back turned to him. The room was quiet, the silence deep enough to break his will. Finally, she spoke, her voice sharp as ice. You are either very brave or very foolish. Daniel clenched his fists. Maybe both, he said. For a second, her shoulders shook, almost like a laugh. But when she turned back to face him, her eyes were hard again. Then you will see, she said, what your choice has brought you. The floor beneath Daniel shifted, glowing with light. He stumbled, his body heavy, as if the room itself pressed against him. The guards stepped closer, surrounding him. But she raised her hand, stopping them again. This human is mine, she declared, her voice echoing like thunder. No one touches him without my command. Daniel's breath caught. The guards bowed instantly. He realized the truth. To her, he was not just a man, not just a prisoner. He was something else. A key, a memory, a piece of her past she could not destroy. And as her eyes burned into his, Daniel felt the shock deeper than ever. She was no longer the girl he saved, but she was not free from him either. Their bond still lived, twisted now into something dangerous, something neither of them could control. The chamber grew quiet after her command. The guards obeyed, stepping back into the shadows. Daniel stood alone in the circle of light, his heart pounding. He felt the weight of every eye on him, but hers was the heaviest. She moved closer, slow and deliberate. Her silver hair caught the glow of the walls, her blue skin shimmering like water. To everyone else, she was a goddess, a queen, a conqueror. But to Daniel, she was still the girl he once carried through fire. And yet she was not. Not anymore. You are bold, she said, her voice calm. Or perhaps you are simply stubborn. Her eyes narrowed, sharp and piercing. Do you think you are safe because I remember you? Daniel swallowed hard. His voice came out low but steady. I don't think I am safe, he said. But I think you owe me an answer. Her head tilted slightly, curious. An answer, she repeated. Daniel's fists tightened. 10 years ago, you said we would meet again. Now you stand here with armies and ships, and I ask, why? Why come back? Why now? Her smile was thin, dangerous. You think this is about you? She asked, her tone like a blade. The guards stirred, murmuring softly in their strange tongue, but she silenced them with a glance. She stepped closer until Daniel could feel the heat of her presence. Her eyes glowed brighter. This is not about you, human. This is about destiny. Daniel held his ground, though his chest tightened. Her words carried power, heavy as stone, but he forced himself to speak. Destiny or not, you remember what I did, he said. You remember the war, the rubble, the blood. You remember that I could have left you to die, but I didn't. For a moment, the fire in her eyes flickered. A shadow of memory crossed her face. Then it was gone, hidden behind the mask of a queen. You saved me, she admitted, her voice softer now. And I have not forgotten. Her tone hardened again. But mercy does not bind me. I am not your friend. I am not your debt. Daniel felt the words like stones against his chest. Still, he took a step closer, his voice firm. Then what am I to you? The silence stretched. Even the hum of the ship seemed to pause. Her gaze locked on his, and for a long moment, she said nothing. Finally, her lips curved into a strange smile. You are my weakness, she said, her voice low, and my strength. Daniel's breath caught. The words were not a confession, not kindness, but something more dangerous. A truth she did not want to admit, but could not hide. To her, he was a memory she could not erase. A living reminder of the girl she once was. And for a queen, memories were dangerous. She raised her hand, and the walls shifted, glowing brighter. The chamber transformed into a vast window, showing the earth below. Cities glittered like stars. Armies moved like ants, powerless under the shadow of her ships. You see this world? She said, her voice steady. They are not ready. They are weak, divided, fragile. Her eyes turned back to him, burning. And yet you, a single human, once chose to save me. Why? Why show mercy when the world around you is drowning in blood? Daniel's chest rose and fell. He looked at the earth, then back at her. His voice cracked, but stayed firm. Because mercy is the only thing that makes us different from monsters. Her expression froze. The words struck her deeper than he expected. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. The silence stretched, and Daniel realized the truth. She was not as untouchable as she wanted the world to believe. She was still haunted by the night in the ruins, by the choice he made, by the bond neither of them could break. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than before. You think you understand me, human, she whispered. But you do not. You will learn. She turned sharply, her armor whispering as she moved. The guards followed, but she raised her hand again, stopping them. This one stays, she commanded. He is mine. The doors closed with a hiss, leaving Daniel alone in the vast chamber. The silence pressed against him, heavier than any chain. He sank to his knees, not from her command, but from the weight of what had just happened. He was alive, but he was no longer free. And for the first time, Daniel wondered if saving her had been an act of mercy, or a curse that had followed him across 10 years. The chamber lights dimmed. The guards were gone, the doors sealed. Daniel stood alone until she returned, her steps echoing against the glass floor. Her presence filled the room, heavy, commanding, impossible to ignore. She stopped before him, her silver hair glowing faint in the dark. Her eyes burned with a strange fire, half cold, half searching. You do not understand what you are caught in, she said, her voice calm but sharp. But you will. Daniel clenched his fists, his throat dry, but his words steady. Then make me understand. Her gaze lingered on him for a long moment. Then she turned, and the walls shifted again. The chamber became a window into the sky. Beneath them, earth spun slowly, beautiful and fragile. Cities glimmered, oceans stretched wide, clouds curled like smoke. You call this your world, she said, her voice deep. Your home, your people, your life. But it is weak. I could destroy it in one breath. She raised her hand, and the ship hummed. A beam of light flickered, aimed at the earth. Daniel's heart froze, but she lowered her hand before it struck. The beam faded, leaving silence. Her eyes returned to him, piercing. I give you a choice, she said. Stand with your kind, and you will die with them when the time comes. Or stand with me, and you will live. Daniel's chest tightened. His voice came rough. So that's it? Vow, obey, and betray my people. Her lips curved, but it was not a smile. You call it betrayal, she said. I call it survival. Daniel shook his head. You don't understand humans, he said. Survival is not enough. We fight for more than just life. We fight for freedom, for meaning, for each other. Her expression hardened. Freedom is an illusion, she said sharply. Meaning is a chain, and each other is what makes you weak. Her words struck him, but he did not falter. He took a step forward, his voice rising. Then why do you remember me? Why not kill me the moment you saw me? If weakness disgusts you, why let me live? The silence cut deep. Her eyes flickered, the fire inside them shifting. For a heartbeat, she looked almost human, almost uncertain. Then she turned away, hiding her face. You saved me once, she said, her tone low. I cannot erase that, but I am no longer the girl you carried through the ruins. I'm a queen, and a queen cannot be weak. Daniel stepped closer, his voice firm. You don't have to be weak to be human, he said. You don't have to be cruel to be strong. Her breath caught just slightly. Then she spun, her eyes blazing. You test me, human, she hissed. Do not mistake memory for mercy. Daniel stood his ground. I'm not testing you, he said. I'm reminding you that the choice you offer me is also the choice you must face. Her eyes widened just for an instant. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one dared. The chamber pulsed with light, the walls humming as if the ship itself felt the tension. Finally, she raised her hand, and the glow faded. Her voice was sharp again, but lower, steadier. You will decide, she said. Soon, and when the time comes, remember this moment. Daniel's chest burned with anger, confusion, and fear. But he saw something in her eyes before she turned away. Not just power, not just coldness, but conflict. Like two worlds were at war inside her. One queen, one girl. She walked to the door, the guards returning to her side. Take him to the holding chamber, she commanded. He is not a prisoner, but he is not free. The guards obeyed, leading Daniel down a long corridor. As he walked, he glanced back. For a second, her eyes followed him. Not with rage, not with command, but with something he could not name. Daniel's thoughts spun as the doors closed behind him. The choice she offered was clear, but another choice hung in the air, hidden. Not between life and death, not between human and alien, but between the queen she had become and the girl he once saved. The holding chamber was quiet. Daniel sat alone, the walls glowing faintly. The air smelled of metal and smoke. He tried to rest, but his mind refused to stop. Her words echoed again and again. Stand with your kind and die, or stand with me and live. He pressed his hands to his face. He wanted to believe she was wrong. He wanted to believe humanity could survive. But deep down, he felt the weight of her power. If she wished, she could burn the earth in one night. Then the walls shook. The floor trembled, and the glow flickered. The sound of alarms filled the ship, sharp and cold. Daniel jumped to his feet. Something was happening. Something wrong. The door hissed open. Two guards rushed in, weapons drawn. Before Daniel could speak, the queen appeared behind them. Her face was hard, her eyes burning, but not with anger, with fear. She waved her hand, and the guards left. The door sealed again. Daniel stared at her, confused. You look afraid, he said quietly. She did not deny it. For the first time since her return, she looked less like a goddess, and more like the girl he once knew. The war I spoke of, she said, her voice low. It is here. Daniel's chest tightened. What war? He asked. You already won. You already control the skies. Her eyes locked on his, glowing with fire. You think I came for conquest, she said. You think I came for revenge. But no, human. I came because something greater follows me. The walls shook again, harder this time. A deep roar echoed through the ship. Not human, not machine, but alive. Daniel's blood ran cold. What was that? He whispered. Her gaze sharpened, her jaw set. The ones who destroyed my world, she said. The ones who left me broken in your war 10 years ago. They are coming, And if your people do not stand with mine, neither of us will survive. Daniel felt the room spin. The truth crashed into him like fire. She was not the enemy. Not truly. She was a warning. A survivor of something worse. Why tell me this? He asked, his voice shaking. Why not tell my leaders, my soldiers, my people? Her eyes softened just slightly. Because they will not believe me, she said. But you already know I speak truth. You saw me weak. You saw me broken. And still you saved me. Daniel's heart pounded. The bond between them had changed, twisted, but it was real. And now it carried a weight larger than either of them. He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. Then what do we do? She looked at him, silent for a moment. Her hand rose, not to command, not to strike, but to rest lightly against his chest. Her voice dropped to a whisper. We fight together. Before Daniel could answer, the walls split open. The sky outside burned red. Shadows moved across the stars, massive and endless. Creatures of black steel and living fire, their shapes twisting like nightmares. Their roar thundered across the heavens, shaking the earth below. The queen's eyes blazed with fury. Daniel's heart froze. The war was not against her. The war was against them. The ship shuddered as weapons fired, beams of light cutting into the void. The creatures struck back, tearing through metal like paper. The chamber shook, sparks rained down. Daniel staggered, nearly falling. The queen caught his arm, her grip strong, unyielding. Her eyes burned into his. Your choice is no longer yours alone, she said. Your world depends on it. The roar outside grew louder, closer. The chamber lights died, leaving only the glow of her eyes in the dark. And Daniel knew the night of mercy 10 years ago had not only changed her fate, it had tied the fate of both their worlds together.